Get the Angel Reese special at McDonald's now. Let's break it down. My favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, of course. And don't forget the fries and a drink. Sound good? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating restaurants for a limited time.
Your data is like gold to hackers, and they'll sell it to the highest bidder. Are you protected? McAfee helps shield you, blocking suspicious texts, malicious emails, and fraudulent websites. McAfee Secure VPN lets you browse safely, and its AI-powered text scam detector spots threats instantly. You'll also get up to $2 million of award-winning antivirus and identity theft protection, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
Here's something that's impressive to me. How much, and simultaneously how little, I know about Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son.
See? That's Barron.
Barron's been in the spotlight for years. This is footage of him when he was like 10 months old. His father had just gotten a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
He's strong, he's smart, he's tough, he's vicious, he's violent. All of the ingredients you need to be an entrepreneur. And most importantly, hopefully, he's smart. Because smart is really the ingredient. So, Barron, good luck.
If you Google around, you can piece together a whole childhood, mostly in memes. There's Barron zooming around his mother's office in a miniature red Mercedes. He was in preschool then. You can catch him yawning as his dad gives his 2016 victory speech. That's been mashed up online, so it looks like he's daydreaming about video games. There's even soccer highlight reels for Barron. He played in high school. He's over 6 feet tall these days, so he lopes around the field like a silent giant. Barron's silence. For Dan Adler at Vanity Fair, it's the whole point. It allows the rest of us to fill in the blanks.
People often put a lot of meaning on him, and I can't say whether this is a strategy on his part, but the withholding is very effective.
Like just letting people project onto you what they want.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, I wanted to write about Barron as a celebrity because that's what he is, whether by design or by happenstance. And I was trying to think of comparable celebrities. I think ultimately they include people like Daft Punk or Early the Weeknd or Playboi Carti.
People who are kind of anonymous?
Yes. People who have a big imprint despite not giving much.
One thing that's impossible to ignore is the way Barron's reputation has evolved during his father's second term. The first time around, Barron was just a kid. People openly speculated about him being secretly progressive, maybe autistic. An SNL writer got put on leave after tweeting that Barron would be the country's first homeschool shooter. Now things have changed. In the run-up to November's election, Barron got all the credit for his dad's tour of Dude Bro podcasts. And at the inauguration, he got a hero's welcome.
If you're a fan of the Trump celebrity enterprise and you've seen Barron be portrayed in a certain way as odd or different or as standoffish, I could imagine that part of your response to that, especially after your guy just won, is to say, actually, Barron is a swaggering playboy who can do whatever he wants.
Do any of the memes that are out there about Barron Trump, either the ones that portray him as like secretly hating his dad or the ones that are like putting him forward as some kind of MAGA hero, do any of these reflect the reality of Barron Trump?
Frankly, I have no idea. I mean, just so little is known about him.
You wrote a whole piece about him for Vanity Fair. Do you feel like you're any closer to getting him?
I'm closer to understanding the cultural phenomenon around him. He's certainly under no obligation to do really anything, I suppose. But it is very interesting that there's so much weight on him, despite, again, having given really, really, relative to his circumstances, nothing.
Today on the show, who the hell is Barron Trump? And in the end, how much does it matter? I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does without me lifting a finger, so I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Okay, so start me at the beginning. Like, what do we know about Barron Trump? Like, I think he first entered the public consciousness as a fetus because there's this iconic picture of a very pregnant Melania Trump in a golden bikini standing on the stairway of the Trump jet with her husband nearby at a Mercedes-Benz. This is like 2006 in Vogue. It's an Annie Leibovitz picture. But when did he really first enter the scene?
When his father took office. And I think he's about, 10 years old, 11 years old at that point. And, it was just an era of, probably to an even greater degree than it is now, close scrutiny on the Trump kids. And Barron, because he was young and because he couldn't conceivably have any role in what was happening on a political level, the attention paid to him was mostly frivolous and winking.
I had forgotten that when Donald Trump first took office, Barron didn't move to D.C. It was sort of part of the whole Melania separate from Donald, continuing his normal life in New York kind of thing. So there wasn't a whole lot of visibility into him back during the first time around, was there?
No, there wasn't. Part of that was his age. And then part of that, I think, also has to do with, there's always been this narrative around Melania that, blink twice if you mean something else. Because these are people that don't give much. Again, whether by design or whether just by disposition, hard to say. Trump himself is posting, thinking out loud 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think onlookers, myself included, look at the Melania Barron corner of it and think, well, there's this other thing going on that might explain him at some deeper psychic level, but we don't really know what's happening there. And so I think it's natural to kind of speculate and project a bit.
I had forgotten that towards the end of Donald Trump's presidency, there was this Save Barron hashtag. Basically, at the time, Barron was 14, and his dad had been in office for a few years. He'd gotten really tall, but that's kind of everything people knew about him. And then some folks thought, oh, we've uncovered a Roblox account for Barron. And it just kicked off all this speculation online. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I think some of it is people look out for kids, which makes all the sense in the world. It is nice. And I think with Barron in particular, there's a little bit of, I think, extra protectiveness around him.
There was literally a petition online to save Barron Trump. It got 15,000 signatures. People were trying to hatch plans on Twitter. Lightheartedly.
Sometimes it can be hard to parse. A lot of it is lighthearted. A lot of it is sort of it's reminiscent of stan culture. In a broad sense, not all of it should be taken as sort of at face value. With Barron, I think one thing that happened that changed the conversation around him during the recent election is that there was more of a narrative that had real political and media significance. He was commonly understood as someone who was pulling the strings. And that, too, is something that we have limited visibility into. He's not talking about it. Trump is talking about it. His advisors are talking about it. Elon Musk and Melania are talking about it. But in any case, the conversation took on a more meaningful and also fraught undertone.
Yeah, I feel like 2024 was when things flipped. I first began to sort of think about Barron Trump and where's Barron at in October of 2024. And that's because there were a couple of articles that basically said all of the podcast stuff you're seeing Donald Trump do, all these kind of right-wing, hyper-masculine guys, this is about Barron. And it surprised me. But when you look back at those podcasts, you can literally hear Donald Trump saying, "Oh, my son says hi. He loves you." It's clear something's going on. It's a little unclear how strategic it all is. Can you just lay out the kind of TikTok of what we know about Barron being involved in this strategy?
We know a few things that there are certain podcasts he likes. I mean, there was this dinner Barron had at Mar-a-Lago with his friend Bo Loudon, who's sort of another 18-year-old. He's a conservative online personality, has some connections in this space that involve, I still don't think there's like quite a term for it, but the sort of like streaming podcast, YouTube channel ecosystem.
I mean, tell me about this dinner, because it's been talked about a few different ways by a few different people. Basically, one podcaster, this guy Patrick Bet-David, talked about getting an email that read, "Barron wants to have dinner with you because he follows you," and kind of not believing it.
Yes. So that outreach was done by Barron's friend Bo, and Bo has also taken credit for orchestrating one of Trump's other sort of big ticket alternative media sphere appearances when he went on Adin Ross's stream. Adin Ross is, I think he's like 21, 22. He recently had a live stream with Drake. He's very well connected and sort of like A-list rap. And Trump came on that show. And that to me was really significant, because for all the conversation around Joe Rogan, for example, and whether Kamala Harris would go on Rogan, I don't think anyone even suggested or even thought of the idea that Kamala Harris would go on Adin Ross. It's just like a pretty separate ecosystem. So all to say that Bo is this figure in that loose space of that media subculture. And Bo reached out to Justin Waller and Patrick Bet-David, who are two content creators, online personalities. Justin Waller is a friend of Andrew Tate. So he's, on that end of the spectrum.
Andrew Tate, who has been charged with human trafficking.
Yes. Patrick Bet-David, I covered his election night watch party in Fort Lauderdale. The prevailing theme was that the old guard of celebrities, we don't need them. As the results were coming in and people saw that Trump was going to win, it was like, well, Beyonce endorsed Kamala Harris, Taylor Swift did, and this isn't working for you guys anymore. And so I think there's this idea that in Trump winning, people who supported him on a cultural level as a celebrity were able to say, it's our turn, and we decide who's an important celebrity.
And Barron Trump is at the center of that.
Exactly.
After the break. So, what do we know about Barron Trump?
At New Balance, we believe if you run, you're a runner. However you choose to do it. Because when you're not worried about doing things the right way, you're free to discover your way. And that's what running's all about. Run your way at newbalance.com/running.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places. Between payroll, your tax consultant, and the IRS. If your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
So at the same time that Barron Trump is being given this credit for steering his father's campaign, coming up with a strategy that roped in young, aggravated male voters, he's also just an 18-year-old who's, going to college. And I remember when I heard about where he was going to college, because it was a little bit of a mystery for a while, I was surprised because he goes to NYU. His dad went to Penn. His dad is very affiliated with the University of Pennsylvania. Don Jr. went there. And I think of NYU as kind of liberal, but you basically went to NYU to talk to people who might be encountering Barron there. And you also put forward the idea that, well, NYU kind of makes sense because it's also full of influencers. And that's kind of who Barron is.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I wanted to do the story was as also a kind of a slight case study in ostensibly liberal college politics in 2025. Stern, the business school, doesn't have the reputation either within NYU or within the broader context of college politics as being a particularly progressive space.
You got this one quote that really made a few laps around the internet. It was from the president of the NYU College Republicans, a woman named Kaya Walker. The quote was, "He's sort of like an oddity on campus," about Barron Trump. He goes to class, he goes home. Now, there is not much to this quote.
There's nothing to that quote. It was treating Barron the way, really only one of the ways you're able to treat him at this point, which is as a curiosity. It's like, we don't know much about this guy. We want to know more. And my story was taken as sort of an entry in that effort. And then something happened on maybe day 5 or day 6 of the cycle, which is that this right-wing new media outlet called AF Post, America First Post, they took the quote you just mentioned about Barron being an oddity and tweeted just that, sans the context around it. And if you read the story, I don't think it would occur to anyone that that quote was meant as an assessment of Barron Trump's personality. It's objectively strange to see a guy show up to campus flanked by Secret Service officers and a motorcade of black SUVs and have him be the president's son during this historic election. So that quote circulated via AF Post as an assessment of Barron Trump's personality.
The implication was that she was saying Barron himself was an oddity. He's an odd guy.
Yes.
But that's not really what she was saying.
It's not what she was saying at all. And again, I think anyone who reads the story, and she gave an interview to the New York Post where she said much the same. It's frankly impossible to read the story and read that quote that way. But if you read it stripped from context on this, within this ecosystem that is so devoted to the idea of Barron as untouchable, then it takes on a different valence. And it got really, really, really nasty and gendered almost immediately. The subtext, and in some cases not even the subtext, was how dare this young woman say anything about our guy?
Oof. Yikes.
Yeah, it was really ugly.
So what happened after Kaya said this?
Soon after the tweet started to circulate, Kaya Walker received pressure from the National Organization of College Republicans chapters, and she submitted her resignation. And she said in her resignation letter that it was clear what she meant, but that she had caused unintentionally this sort of stir around Barron. And when the College Republicans organization issued their statement addressing the situation, they said Kaya Walker's comments were inappropriate and that Barron represents the future of the movement.
It doesn't seem healthy. This seems unhealthy for a democratic system to have someone have a quote taken out of context and within 24 hours they're driven out of their position of very mild authority.
We could go on and on as far as the hypocrisies, contradictions, ironies. A party that has talked a lot about supposed censorship and cancel culture. It's hard to think of a more clear-cut instance of speech punishment than this.
She says she regrets resigning, yeah?
She gave an interview to the New York Post. She says she regrets resigning, and she says what I just said, which is that if you read the story, there's really no reason for the kind of personal defensiveness that seemed to motivate so much of the outcry.
I want to focus in on something that the broader college Republicans group said, that Barron was the future of the party. That's wild to me. For a guy who's been totally silent and his only association with the Republican Party is getting his dad elected through non-political podcasts, for the broader college Republicans to say, yep, this guy's it. He's got the stuff.
It's at a minimum disorienting. And again, having spent a lot of time thinking about it, reporting on it, writing about it, I still haven't quite teased out why there's so much devotion to the guy. And I should say, in some fringe corners, but increasingly in sort of like mainstream tabloid, celebrity, social media corners, there's a sense of Barron as an heir to his father, not just in the sense that he's his father's son, but that he represents some bright future.
It really speaks to the fact that the Republican Party doesn't really know who's on next after Trump.
Yeah. I mean, Trump was recently asked in his Super Bowl interview whether J.D. Vance was his successor, and he sort of hedged. He said, J.D. Vance is great, but I don't know. To state the obvious, maybe it's hard when the guy at the center is who he is. Is there another Trump? Probably not. He's one of one.
Listening to you talk, I've been thinking about how America has this pretty specific relationship with children who grow up in and around the White House, like whether it's Chelsea Clinton or the Bush twins or the Obama sisters. We kind of love and root for these kids, but we also sort of consume them in this weird way. And after their parents are off doing something else, they become these cultural totems in a strange way. Like they have a book club, or they write for kids, or they get TV correspondent gigs. And Barron is kind of like the dank meme version of a White House child. Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
I think we should be fair and clear. There were things said about the Obama kids that were probably, like, in retrospect, seem a little weird or overly attached. I don't think it ever got to the level of the sort of spiritual, psychic investment in Barron that we're currently seeing. I mean, just to give you an example, if you go to really any YouTube video of Barron doing anything, shaking Dana White, the UFC CEO's hand, that kind of thing, the comments are always, they're really intense. They're saying, that's how a man operates. That's how our country is in safe hands. That's how we're set for the next generation. And people want hope, and I get that. I am just sort of flummoxed.
Sounds a little insecure to me, honestly. Like, if this is what you're saying, says the future's in good hands, like, you're not seeing much.
I think part of it has to do with, again, his withholding, and then also his father as being the kind of celebrity that he is. Donald Trump has been famous for decades and has reinvented himself as a celebrity a few times. And to me, the most recent reinvention had to do with Barron, because it took place, again, in that sort of Aiden Ross, Theo Von media sphere. And Trump became a pop culture figure again, which is sort of amazing on its own terms. And if you buy into that, it does make some sense to me that you see Barron as fitting into that.
Dan, I'm grateful for your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mary.
Dan Adler is a staff writer at Vanity Fair. And that's the show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Gunther, Anna Phillips, Madeline Ducharme, and Ethan Oberman. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. Hillary Fry is our Editor-in-Chief. And I'm Mary Harris. You can go track me down on Blue Sky, say hello. I'm at Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.